Hello, this video is about Lucy Letby. Did she or didn't she kill those babies? I've been following this case uh, for the last, I don't know, ever since she was convicted really, and before that. At one point I was following it quite closely and I've sort of lost a bit of interest in it, but my interest has come back because I think that the Court of Appeal decision is going to be in fairly soon. And on my Facebook feed all the time there are uh, various posts about Lucy Letby and that, thousands of people crying out, she didn't do it, the evidence was all wrong, etc., etc. It's been proven wrong by various esteemed medical people. Well, that's something that the Court of Appeal are currently looking at, and I don't think anybody's in a position at the moment to really say whether she is guilty or not guilty. We had two trials, I understand, and she was found guilty in both trials. One of the trials lasted 6 months and a heck of a lot of evidence was listened to, which obviously people who are currently screaming that she didn't do it, how much evidence have they actually heard? What they've mainly heard is a case made by the Lucy Letby supporters and defense, cherry-picked. So I don't know. We need to look at everything, the entire case. And there's more to this case than air embolism and statistics about how many babies died while they were in Letby's care and whether these were properly assessed by statisticians, etc., etc., etc. The prosecution and lawyers representing the families have said that the latest appeal is merely a rehash of all the defense in those particular two trials, that the air embolism evidence was already criticized in the trials and it was rejected by the jury and she was found guilty. We don't know exactly why the jury found her guilty. I mean, for example, they may have had doubts about the air embolism evidence, the soundness of it, but there may have been other factors which convinced them that Letby is guilty. And it's quite possible the Court of Appeal may well come back, and who knows, they may say that yes, there were problems with the air embolism evidence, but because there was so much in the trial, we don't know exactly why the jury reached that conclusion. In the case of Barry George, something I made a video about, there was only one piece of evidence which convicted him, and that was the gunshot residue. There was only one piece of evidence which convicted Barry George that the jury could have found him guilty on, and that was the gunshot residue. Once that gunshot residue evidence was overturned, because in America it's not considered to be a significance, one piece of gunshot residue, and it was argued correctly that the contamination could have resulted in this gunshot residue being in his pocket. Once that was proven that that could be the case, obviously his conviction was overturned and there was a retrial and he was found not guilty. In Lucy Letby's case, there's a whole string of there's a whole catalogue of circumstantial evidence, and the jury may well have said, well, no, that doesn't quite work, but overall, on balance, if you put it all together, we're convinced by, say, 80% of the evidence which has been put forward, 20% we can dismiss. Maybe the air embolism evidence doesn't matter, but the rest of it does matter, and there's enough there to convince us that Lucy Letby is guilty. So while there may be some weak strands of evidence, it may well be that the Court of Appeal will say that a jury properly instructed had enough evidence to have convicted her, even if some of the evidence was unsound. I'm not a legal expert, but from what I've read, this seems to be the case. So don't be surprised if the Court of Appeal come back and they reject the appeal application. Commentators who are at the top of their profession, legal experts, if you read around in the media, not those screaming Letby's innocent, because one of the doctors has been proven this or that or the other. I mean, those who've really analysed the case at the top level have said, don't be surprised if the Court of Appeal come back and they reject the application. I think that's the most likely thing that is going to happen, particularly as we've had 2 very long trials and they've both resulted in convictions. And the case was very, very complex. Yeah, so it is interesting, and obviously it would be a terrible miscarriage of justice if she didn't do it, but we've got a legal system in place. Juries sometimes make mistakes. Trial evidence is often misrepresented, or it has been misrepresented. We've had these cases, terrible miscarriages of justice, but a lot of them get overturned because we've got a fairly robust, fairly fair system that if you can prove that there were issues with the evidence or the way that the trial was conducted, you can actually get a conviction overturned, or you can get a retrial. So let's just wait and see. But my money would be on the application being rejected. And I think on balance, looking at all the evidence that I've seen, all the circumstantial evidence, and I believe it or not, you can build a case and convict somebody with circumstantial evidence. So those people who say there was no camera showing that she injected air into the babies, no, there isn't, because obviously, naturally, she wouldn't be stupid enough if she did do it to inject air into babies while cameras were watching her. There was no such thing. There's no such evidence, but people can be convicted by circumstantial evidence if the case is strong enough. So those of you who are saying that it's only circumstantial, well, yeah, sorry, but a lot of cases are proven that way. That's the legal system we've got. Otherwise, there'd be a lot of murderers out there who were not convicted simply because we don't allow circumstantial cases, but we do allow circumstantial cases. So I'm sorry, but even if there's no direct evidence, circumstantial evidence is allowable. Whether you think it's right or wrong, that is the case. I mean, I can just bring up one little point that people have made about these notes that Lucy Letby said, where she said, I did it, I'm guilty, you know, blah, 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 I'm evil. And people have said, oh yeah, but she was having counseling and she was encouraged to write these things down. And so she was just doing as she was directed. And that therefore she didn't really mean any of this. She was just, it was like a kind of traumatic thing that she was going through. Well, there's just one problem with that. That when she was originally questioned by the police, why did she write, you know, these things? She never once said, I was having counseling and that's what they told me to write. She was asked several times about that. That would have been one time to say, oh, well, I wrote that because I was having counseling. They encouraged me to just write down, you know, things and externalize my feelings, but I didn't really mean it. And it's because I was having counseling and that's what they told me to do. When she was being questioned by police, she never said that. She never said it at all. And she had plenty of opportunities to say that, but she never did. She just shrugged her shoulders and said, well, I don't know. She never used that as a defense. So there are plenty of other examples like that. But overall, yeah, I believe that she probably is guilty. If on my sort of gut feeling and some of the evidence that I've seen, but I would not be prepared on what I've seen of the case to sit in a jury and suddenly make that snap decision, snap judgment. I would have to sit through the entire 6-month trial and look at all the evidence and debate with the other jurors on every single point of evidence. So, I mean, we can all have an opinion on whether she's guilty or not, but I would not be prepared to sign her life away on what I know of the case so far. And that's why we have the Court of Appeal and we have experts. Let's just sit and wait and see what the Court of Appeal says, and we'll take it from there, whether there's going to be a retrial or not. If there's going to be a retrial and this is going to be overturned, wow, I mean, it'll be one of the most spectacular miscarriages of justice of all time. But as I understand it, there's a lot coming out. There have been investigations to the extent that in future NHS bosses will have the power as a result of the Letby case. They're saying she could have been stopped sooner. You know, that kind of implies it. Well, yeah, she is guilty. They're currently looking at other cases against her. There may well be other prosecutions to come. The police are looking at that. So it's kind of strange that on the one hand, everybody's saying, oh, she's innocent. But on the other hand, all the investigations are saying, well, she could have been stopped sooner. There are other cases that she might have to answer to. So there's a conflict. There's a lot of tension there. And it's sort of entertaining to see and interesting to see how it's going to turn out. So yeah, let's keep watching this space and let's wait for developments. Let's wait for official developments. Okay, bye for now.